I've always been fascinated by things that fly, so last summer I tried to make a working RC plane, but let's just say that things didn't go as planned.
One go.
That was 6 months ago. Obviously the plane didn't survive the crash, it shattered into thousands of pieces upon impact and the damage was just brutal to see. But this isn't exactly what happened, because contrary to what you might be thinking, the plane is actually right here. In order for you to understand how this is even possible, I need to show you. So you see, most conventional aircraft are controlled using 3 main parts: the elevator which controls pitch, the rudder which controls yaw, and the ailerons which control roll. For example, pushing the elevator up when the plane is flying causes incoming air to push against the surface and tilt the plane up, while pushing the elevator downwards does the opposite. So it would be obvious to assume that for the ailerons, moving the left one up and the right one down causes the left side to go up and the right side to go down, which therefore rolls the plane to the right. Pretty self-explanatory, except for the part where it actually rose to the left, since in this scenario the airflow pushes the upper side down instead. But I didn't know that, so I made the controls reversed, and it wasn't until after the plane was in the air when I realized I messed up and was forced to accept my fate. As for how the plane survived the crash, the impact was greatly reduced since it hit a tree rather than the ground.
Yes!
So after painfully knocking the plane off the tree, I was able to inspect the damages, which honestly weren't that bad. Which is insane, because you're telling me that this crash, which sounded like a literal explosion, didn't even manage to do significant damage? In fact, the only damage is this tail section, which is only cracked because I hit it too hard as I was knocking it out the tree. And although there were a few cracks here and there, everything was super simple to fix, and I was able to do that quite quickly with a bit of hot glue. Which leaves only one more problem, and that is this. Instead of turning normally, the motor just clicks violently and then decides to die. That is very scary. What the hell is happening, guys? So yeah, that's kinda scary, and I'm not sure why this is happening. I feel like the main problem has to do with the ESC. Wait, not this one. This one. It stands for Electronic Speed Controller and it controls the speed of the motor, but I think it overheated during the crash, so I guess we'll just have to...
In a hard place, he's battery in control. What am I waiting for? Feet planted beneath. Here comes my transport.
Now this is what I wish would have happened, but what actually happened is a completely different story. So yeah, I actually bought this online instead, but technically speaking this doesn't arrive until a few weeks in the future, so we need to go back a bit. Oops, that's a little bit too far. There we go, back in the present, and as we wait for the ESC to arrive, in the meantime, let's paint the plane. If you haven't already noticed, this plane was actually modeled after the iconic World War II era Spitfire. The Spitfire has a ton of different variants, but I chose to replicate the Mark I, simply because I thought the black and white underside, which was removed in later variants, would look cool in the air. I forgot to mention this earlier, but since this is my first time making an RC plane, I decided to use pre-existing plans instead of making my own. So if you're wondering, the main structure of this model was actually designed by the guys at FliteTest, and they did an amazing job capturing the iconic look of the Spitfire. Painting the Spitfire was made a lot easier since the color of the foam was already brown, so all I needed to do was add a few stripes of green. The final result isn't the most accurate or perfect, but for the most part I think it looks pretty good. What isn't so good, however, is the fact that I spilled a ton of paint onto my table during the process, which I definitely didn't do on purpose to transition into a sponsorship. You know, instead of trying to clean this mess, what if I just got a new desk? Well, luckily, this video was sponsored by FlexiSpot, and they were happy enough to send me their E7 standing desk. It arrived in 2 boxes, and it was pretty fun and for the most part, pretty easy to assemble. I ended up choosing the red oak solid wood tabletop with white legs, but keep in mind that there are tons of different sizes and colors to choose from. So I guess that means I have a standing desk now, and the best part is that it's so simple to use. You can even preset heights so you can switch positions with the simple press of a button. There's also a lot more other features, and sometimes I end up forgetting that I'm still standing up, so in a way the desk kind of forces me to exercise. If you're looking for a new desk and you want to be more healthy, FlexiSpot is the way to go. Click the link in my description and use code IBS50 to get $50 off. This is an RC plane simulator, and since the only experience I've had was a flight that lasted only 10 seconds, I should really practice.
It's actually pretty easy.
The only problem is that it's way harder than it looks. Take a drone for example. I can take off easily, and if I let go of the controls, it hovers in place. It can basically go in any direction, and there's even a screen so you know exactly where you are at all times. But a plane has to move forward to stay in the air, and it doesn't automatically stabilize, so you have to constantly make adjustments and make sure you don't crash. If you turn too sharp, it stalls. If you go too slow, it also stalls. If you go inverted or fly towards yourself, the controls get reversed. If you fly too far away, it's hard to see the orientation. If you underestimate the distance, it might crash into a tree. You need a constant line of sight, and you need to land it before the battery runs out. Speaking of landing, I need to cut the throttle right before it touches the ground, but if I do it too early, it stalls, and if I do it too late, the propeller breaks fast.
Alright guys, it is 10:27, but if I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I got any better at all. So, what the hell am I doing?
Turns out the ESC I bought a while back is here now, and I also discovered that buying things from sketchy websites is really cheap, so I also got this new motor just in case there was a problem with the first. Now that the electronics needed are here, we can finally work on the engine. Since I didn't have any screws, I had to improvise by using the ones that came with the Servo Motors. The main motor will actually be mounted at an ever so slight angle in order to compensate for the leftwards torque caused by the rotation of the propeller, and it's also angled downwards by a few degrees for a better angle of attack, which basically just helps the plane fly better. I had to do a bit of research on aerodynamics and how planes fly and stuff, and turns out this stuff is insanely complicated. But none of that matters if it doesn't work, so... Nice. All I needed to do now was add a bit of hot glue and slide the engine into the nose of the aircraft, which wasn't the easiest because I had to constantly adjust things to make sure the plane's center of gravity was correct, but in the meantime, enjoy this time lapse that I find incredibly satisfying to watch. Now that the engine is finally secure, we can move on to adding some of the markings and details. For some reason, I kinda just decided that I had to get the scale and position of the symbols to be perfect, so I ended up doing quite a few calculations and measured things down to the centimeter, which is kind of funny. Hey Siri, what's 55 divided by 13.5? I didn't really like the light bluish color of the canopy, so I decided to remove the paint and cover it back up with a layer of tinfoil. And now it looks much better. And boom, just like that, now we have some of the RAF markings, just like the real Spitfire. Hold up, let me just wash my paintbrush real quick. On April 9th of last year, I launched a homemade rocket in this park. So naturally, I thought it would be cool if I flew the Spitfire exactly 1 year after this day, as like an anniversary celebration or something. But this isn't possible because I ended up procrastinating an entire 2 months. Today is June 1st, and I'm gonna be busy for most of the month, so I need to launch this plane in 2 days, and that's not a lot of time. To get over my fear of flying the plane, maybe I should first try something that's a bit more relaxing and lighthearted. I ended up stumbling upon this foam glider in a random convenience store. So if I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure why I decided to buy this, but I did. At first the performance was absolutely terrible and it just wouldn't fly straight, but after finding out that the model was tail heavy, I added a bit of weight to the nose, and after that it flew surprisingly well. Messing around with this kinda made me feel like a little kid again, and as stupid as this looks, it was pretty fun to play around with.
There, we got it. That's a shame.
That thing crashed a lot of times. It's almost as if it's trying to foreshadow something, but sometimes you just need to let go of the past and go for it.
I think I broke the LiPo battery, guys. Let me check the voltage real quick. 4, 8, 12, still 12. Yeah, it's broken. And if it still doesn't work, I'm actually going to. Beautiful. Almost. That was pretty good too. LiPo battery, the drone battery of the camera, even had the phone cord going into my hand, so I tried to catch, but then during the process, I bent the cord, so I can't use the flight simulator. I can't practice anymore. And I'm flying the plane in like 7 hours.
I have a really bad feeling about this.
Okay, John, what if you dive bombed as an elderly man and you give him PTSD?
There's not a single person. This is literally the perfect condition.
I'm getting out of here. Oh, I'm not filming.
Look at it. This is definitely a good repair, guys. Not sketchy at all. 100% safe. See, good as new.
Preparing so much as if it's not gonna crash.
Testing the motor.
Holy crap.
It actually works.
You don't want to be in the way of that.
Recording.
Press record.
I already
Did
hit
everyone
record.
press record?
I'm waiting for it to take off.
Everyone press record.
Let me get into a good position.
I'm so
too.
scared.
Alright.
You press record.
Yep.
My
Record.
heart is actually racing.
Give us a countdown, eh?
Alright, let's count down together. 10,
9,
8,
7,
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Holy. Oh my god, I'm flying a plane, guys. Holy crap. I'm gaining altitude. Holy cow! That's so videotated.
So what happened was I turned too hard and lost orientation, so I tried to pull up out of the dive, but I was inverted so it went down instead and slammed straight into the ground. Contrary to what you might be thinking, the damage wasn't actually that bad. The plane is definitely fixable and I'll probably fly it again sometime in the future, but for now let's just leave it as is. This was definitely an interesting journey, and although we didn't have the best final flight, I was able to learn a ton of things that can be applied in future projects, so overall I would call this a success.
We got good footage at least.
Yeah.
Let me see if I caught it.
I got the catch.
Guys, come back.
Hey, John, you have another propeller?
Maybe I can
That's not recording.
And then use your remote control to bounce it.
That's fine.
You want to put it like this.
Yeah, now I gotta click. Are you filming? Now I got a clickbait thumbnail and title, guys. I guess I could fly it again next week, but I don't think I'll be doing that. So,
It's flying, John. Let's go.